born. Lord. From the Exapostolarian, the hymn of light of the Nativity. From the heights, our Savior Christ, the day spring of the East, is come to visit us. And behold, we who once were in the shadow and the dark have now found the truth. For from a holy virgin, the Lord hath been born today. Even today, the light of Christ comes to warm and brighten a world haunted by spiritual shadow and darkness. His birth is celebrated each year as a joyful reminder that God has not abandoned us. In the person of His Son, He visited us in our wounded human condition. And He visits us still. Like a spiritual sun, S-U-N, He rises each day to enlighten our minds, warm our hearts, and to energize our spirits. As we glorify His descent into our midst, may each of us find healing, guidance, and help in the bright rays of His love. With prayers and best wishes for a most joyous feast, I remain yours in the service of Christ, Metropolitan Joseph. So taking off on this theme, light in darkness. You know that what he says there about the Son of God coming into the world to illumine us and to enlighten us and to give us joy, peace, and grace and everything. That's all well and good. How do you like that? That's all well. That's all well and good. If you participate in it, if you become part of that incarnational story, it's just words on a page otherwise. You know, so many people read the Bible, they read the Christmas story. Maybe it's the only time they ever read the Bible all through the year. They said, the Christmas story, we're going to get it out. And in those days, you know, Caesar Augustus, he called for a census, etc. And that's it. Then we put it back on the shelf and it gets dusty again, just to be undusted next Christmas. No. The reason no is because, especially since you're Orthodox Christians, ours is a way of participation. It has to be participated in. We have to take that newborn child, you know, unto ourselves. Since he became one of us, since he became human, like one of us, we have to figure out, and it's painful. I'm not going to stand here and say, oh, all of this is just so easy. You have to take that newly incarnated Lord and put Him in your heart and figure out what that means in your life. Think about it. I have people that they say, I was dealt a bad hand in life, you know. Okay, so was I. So read it. Christ was dealt a horrible hand. Think about it. I mean, He didn't even have a home, ever. He had a little bit of a home as He was growing up, but not even a place to be born, except among the beasts. To be born among the beasts. And then later on, not a home at all, just to preach and to do all His work like an itinerant prophet. And then to be treated miserably, right? He didn't complain one time. You know what He complained about? What did He complain about? Do you remember? He complained about, like, how long do I have to be with you? How long do I have to be with you before you finally get it? I can't be here, like, forever. Years and years and years and, like, lifetimes. But He never complained about His own situation. Right? He never complained about His own state. Even though He was looking at the very people He knew that were going to murder Him at some point. He never stopped loving them just because maybe He didn't get what He thought should be the right thing. For them, not just for Him. For them, He let them do whatever they wanted. He let them do whatever they wanted. That's an important lesson for us, right? Because you, my dears, have so much grace, so many benefits that come from this Christmas feast, that come from this birth of Christ. You have all the benefits you need, actually. But that's what I mean when I say you have to participate in them. Become benefited by the incarnation. Don't think of, what a wretched life. What a horrible thing, this and this and this. If you look at that, you will never be a whole person. You'll never be at peace, ever, until the day you die. Christ was at peace even foreseeing his own death. Christ was at peace, as he was born into the world, and the Theotokos bore him like a human being, but also noetically at the same time. It's a beautiful teaching that she had a child, bearing pains and all the rest. But the birth of Christ was miraculous. It was like his body was like his resurrected body. A body of light, a body of somehow could pass through walls and everything. So, and yet, it was a regular pregnancy at the same time. Why did he do that miraculous thing? He did it because he knew that we are miserable in our own selves. We will commit every atrocity, every sin against each other. And to give a great example, we see the gospel, the immediate post-feast gospel. We read it at the 9th hour on the Christmas. We read it the day after Christmas. We read it the Sunday after Christmas. We read it on the feast day of the Holy Innocents themselves, the 14,000 babies massacred by Herod. Wow, such a beautiful feast. And look what we came up with as an answer to the beautiful incarnation of Christ. We came up with jealousy. We came up with I want my power and I don't want it to be affected by this infant. And calling the wise men and calling all his soothsayers and calling everybody to try to figure out, where is the child born so that I can come and worship him too? No, so that I can come and murder him. Let's face it, Herod. You know the rest of the story with Herod the Great. This Herod in this story is Herod the Great, the first Herod. He, of course, when he was dying, it was miserable. People couldn't even go near him. He stunk like worms and everything, like in his body. It was like pussy, and people wouldn't even go near him because of the filth. So he wrought what he sowed. And his brilliant idea, that's why I want you to stay away from brilliant ideas of the world, please. His brilliant idea was, I'll take all the men, the fathers of all their families, and gather them into the arena, and I'll have them all murdered and killed, and tortured and all the rest. Why? So that people would be mourning at the time of his death. Because he knew that everybody hated him. That was his genius. Now, thank God, the ones who came after him, they stopped it. And the captains and the governors, they all stopped it. They said, we're not going to do that. But it was the intention, the dark place of the human heart that wanted that power, the love of the earthly wealth and power. So, Christ, God, the Trinity, knew the plan even of the enemy. So it was thwarted as well. But not before 14,000 holy innocent babies and toddlers were murdered and massacred. That's always the dual message, certainly in our church. It's always the dual message of Christmas. Yes, Christ is born. He was born, though, to redeem us, to sanctify us. And look what we're doing right at the time of his death. And it's not his fault. Don't blame God for it. It's not his fault. This is the fault of, our choices. We choose a lot of things every day. And the world chooses a lot of things every day. And please don't fall into the temptation ever of saying, well, I would never do that. Or I'm incapable of doing that evil thing, that evil. Christ heard that even in his time. And he said, you vipers, if you had been alive, you would have been twice the murderers and killers. So please be careful. Here's our phrase. We say, by the grace of God, I am not going to do any evil thing. And especially not really atrocious evil things. But always by the grace of God. He's the only one that keeps me from falling into my own debased into falling into the condition for which he had to come and be born in the first place. See? Don't make him have to go up on the cross over and over again. Don't make him have to, rise and destroy death by crucifying him all the time. That's the hidden, or not so hidden, message of the Nativity of Christ. When we were in Bethlehem, so the second time I went to Israel was in 2000. And if you go to the Church of the Nativity, with all the tourists with their lights, clicking and flashing, and you have to fight your way through all of that and go underneath to the actual spot where Christ was born to venerate. So, the first time we went, I was with, or the second time I was with Harriman from the Jerusalem Patriarch. And he gave me come with me. Because that's where all the tourists go, of course. But then there's a side chapel. You go actually down a little bit and off to the side. And they have these, it's Jerusalem, it's ancient. Those old keys like they rattle, they have the big long keys about this big, and just looking through the big ring. And he opens up a beautiful chapel of the Holy Innocents. And there are all the bones, all these bones lying there. And then you could pray there. You could sing the Tropar. And their feast is coming up this week on Wednesday. And it's, again, not right out in the open for the whole world to see, for all the tourists and people who don't have any idea about what is this. So, but for the inner life, and we say it all the time, the inner life of the church is such that everybody can't see it. They shouldn't see it until their heart is prepared. And then they can go see this amazing place, the grace of the Holy Innocent Ones, okay? And crying out. But also being at peace in the shadow of their, at that church, in the shadow of their Lord where he was born. It's a nice complete picture. The incompletion, the horror of human existence, and the redemption of human existence by the God-man, who decided to do all of that, and to take all of that on himself. So, the bottom line to this kind of disjointed sermon is this. Take on each other. Take on like Christ. Allow him, first of all, to take you on. Right? Because he's the only one who can do it. We can help each other. Husbands and wives can help each other. We can help our children, But at the end of the day, Christ has to take you on. And at this season, it's the newborn Christ who's come for you. And all of the problems and all of the pain and all of the suffering and all of the sinfulness, he's ready to take it. He's ready to say, I'll take it. And you know what that'll do for you? Here's the beauty of the completeness of the Orthodox faith. The church, from the beginning, is, if I do that, I now have the capacity to do that with other people, to take on, literally, their sins. I can take on your sin. I can take on your, certainly we can take on each other's pain and suffering, but you can't do it without Christ. If you try to do it by yourself, you will smash your head against a brick wall. You will hurt yourself and the other person. So that's why the key is, begin with Christ. Always begin with Christ. Say, I am nothing, Lord, without you, without your incarnation and your new birth. And then if someone comes to you and has something, you may be able to help them by the grace of God alone. There's too much out there in the world. We're trying to help each other with every possible other kind of solution. Maybe wealth will help them. Maybe a place to live will help them. Maybe if they have their head examined, it will help them. Maybe if they get healed of some terminal disease. Nothing helps at the end of the day until Christ is born in every human heart. If Christ is born in the human heart, everything and anything is possible. See why we say with such fervency, Christ is born! Glorify him! Because by that expression, glorify him, it doesn't mean only some outer, we're raising my hand and dancing. It means I glorify Him with my whole life. And I refuse to sin again. Every day is a commitment to that. I refuse to sin against the newborn Christ. I refuse to feed my passions or to, continue these horrible habits. Now's the time, my dears. The newborn Christ is ready to receive all of it and to give you a new start. A holy start. That's how you glorify Him, by receiving that grace.